Welcome to Week 7 of the Amalgamblog College Football Report. My name is Chris Cox. I'll be substituting in for TJ this week. And let's just go ahead and hit the games for Week 7, starting with Contender and Pretender. This week's contender are the Houston Cougars out of Conference USA, who are presently undefeated at 6-0. The reason we have the Cougars as a contender for this week is that they are a mid-major team that has cracked the top 25, and the only one, in fact, other than Boise State, who technically shouldn't be considered a mid-major. So, Case Keenum and the Houston Cougars, congratulations on breaking into the top 25. May you continue to have success and play David to many a Goliath. This week's pretender is the state of Florida, particularly the three major schools of Florida State, Florida, and the University of Miami. With their losses last week, both the Seminoles and the Gators dropped out of the top 25, which means that no teams from the Sunshine State are presently ranked. Now, all teams have down years, and it's very possible that Florida, Florida State, Miami, any of these teams, heck, even UCF might climb back into the polls before the season is over. But right now, no teams from Florida. That's a little bit surprising. So they are a pretender for the week. For our first game to watch, we're going to head out to the Pac-12 for a clash between Arizona State and Oregon. Despite losing one of their top offensive producers last week, the Ducks are fighting with Stanford to make it to the Pac-12 championship. In the other division, the Sun Devils are also leading the standings. So this is a potential preview of the Pac-12 championship in December. I'm going to have to go with the Ducks in this one. Arizona State's going to find that Eugene is a very tough place to play in Autzen Stadium, even though it's a small stadium by the standards that we're used to in the South with our SEC stadiums. Is a very loud, very intimidating place. And I see Oregon taking the victory in this one at home. Next, we head to the ACC for a game between Virginia Tech and Wake Forest. Virginia Tech, as always, is in the mix for the ACC title. But the surprise here is the co-leaders of the Atlantic Division, Demon Deacons. This one's a bit of a toss-up. I don't feel like that Winston-Salem's a very difficult place for teams to come in and play. Wake Forest just doesn't strike me as an intimidating environment, but I actually don't know for any reason whatsoever. So I'm going to guess Virginia Tech might take this one, but don't be surprised if Wake pulls out the victory at home. For our last game to watch, we're going to head to the numerically challenged Big Ten for a game between Indiana and Wisconsin. Though the Badgers are ranked number 4, this has nothing to do with believing it's going to be a good game. It's all about morbid curiosity and the fact that Wisconsin crushed Indiana 83-20 last year. And here's the thing. Wisconsin's actually probably a better team than they were last year. They're ranked number 4. Russell Wilson's throwing the football all over the place. And Indiana is still Indiana. And they're playing in Madison. Even still, I don't see Wisconsin putting up the video game numbers this year. They probably won't hang 83, but it will still probably be a blowout, which means it probably won't be worthy of game-to-watch status. But still, who knows? Maybe they'll put 90 up. Now for our hometown heroes, all of which are on the road this week. So we'll start by heading down to Starkville, Mississippi, where the South Carolina Gamecocks are taking on the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. On the football field, the Gamecocks are coming off of a much-needed shellacking of Kentucky, 54-3, while the Bulldogs put a little bit of a spring in their disappointing season by beating UAB 21-3. This game is one that a lot of people are picking as an upset special this week. South Carolina has traditionally not done well against the SEC West teams. They're 2-6 since 2008. Against their foes from the West, and they're 0-3 on the road in those games. And so playing in Starkville could bring up trouble. South Carolina is the more talented team. It's a question of whether they can put behind all the mess that they've had this week with Steven Garcia being kicked off the team, if Connor Shaw can continue to build on the strong performance that he had last week. That's going to be the determining factor. My gut says Mississippi State's going to win this. My head says South Carolina's going to win this. I'm going to say Gamecocks are going to win in a squeaker, but I would not be surprised at all if the Bulldogs pull out the upset over the Gamecocks. Next, we head up to College Park, where the number 8 Clemson Tigers are taking on the Terrapins of Maryland. Last week, the Tigers continued their undefeated season with a 36-14 win over Boston College. And the Terps lost a tough one to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets by the score of 21-16. Now, if there's one thing that we can count on in this game is that Maryland's probably going to be wearing some really crazy uniforms. Other than that, I don't really see the Terrapins giving the Tigers much of a fight. Clemson's quarterback should be able to play, but even if he doesn't, I think that they just have too many intangibles. And we'll continue to see as Clemson makes this interesting march to what could be a special season for them. I know that some people... Well, here's a question. Clemson fans, is talking about the fact that y'all won your last championship 30 years ago from this year, is that like talking about a no-hitter while it's in progress? Because I just did that, so sorry if I screwed up your championship hopes for you. But anyway, they're having a good season. Good for them. Finally, we head down to Statesboro, where the Furman Paladins are taking on the #1 FCS-ranked Georgia Southern Eagles. The Paladins are coming off of a disappointing 26-21 home loss to Samford last week. The Eagles escaped with a 28-27 win over surprising, quizzical Chattanooga. 2 weeks ago, I would have given Furman a much better shot at pulling off an upset in Statesboro over the #1 team in the country. But Furman's loss at home to Samford, coupled with Georgia Southern barely escaping Chattanooga, and they're not going to be caught sleeping, it makes the odds a little bit long for the Paladins. I do think the Paladins are a much better team than they proved last week. They just need to not turn over the ball. They need to stick with what works, which is that balanced offensive attack with Gerodis Williams running the ball, Chris Forcier doing what he does, which is throwing the ball, running the ball. He's a talented athlete. Still, Statesboro is just a horrible place to play. It's a very tough place for opponents to come in. And as much as I would love to see the Paladins pull off a big upset and get that marquee win, first marquee win of the Bruce Fowler era, I just don't see that happening. I see Georgia Southern winning, probably by a couple of scores. But, Furman, please, prove me wrong. I would love it. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Amalgamblog College Football Report. Hope that you enjoy the games this week. TJ will hopefully be back next week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.